Hi, my name is Mia. I'm from the San Fernando Valley, and this is my story.
Okay, Mia. So let's start off with your childhood. How was that like for you?
So, my childhood. So, my parents are both immigrant parents, and they came here looking for a better life. And what happened was my dad ended up being in a gang, and he was just a not a good person at the time back then. He was very angry. Um, there was a lot of domestic violence between my mom and my dad, and just thinking about it, it's very traumatizing. So like my earliest memory is of my dad and my mom going through this horrible, horrible fight, very violent, and I think that kind of shaped my whole life. That is the first memory that I have of my both my mom and my dad was this very violent fight, and I think after studying psychology and whatnot, you come to realize certain things. And what I realized was those early experiences shaped my whole life, and it shaped who I became later on. Um, Once they got divorced, my mom eventually remarried, and they worked so much, so many hours that I was just left home neglected. So I was just a young girl out on her own, and I found comfort and and more like a family in the homies, and I guess that's why I kind of gravitated towards the homies, and that lifestyle eventually led to um, criminal activity, and then once that began, it led me into a path where I ended up going to prison for 12 years.
So prior to you getting 12 years in prison, how was your social life for you? School, friends, things like that.
So my lifestyle was very chaotic. I got pregnant when I was 16 years old, and I dropped out of high school. I didn't have any ambition then. I didn't have any goals other than living day by day, trying to figure things out with the little bit of like life experience that I had. And so I would say my whole social life was just really hanging out with the homies, and I had no direction at that time. Yeah, so I was 6 months pregnant when I got arrested, and it was crazy. I could still remember the day that I got arrested, and I was at my mom's house, and there was a pounding on the door, and it was full force LAPD, SFPD, Pico Rivera Homicide Division. There was a helicopter out. They had blocked off about 2 blocks um, radius of my mom's house, and I remember at that moment where like my heart sank, and like the air the air escaped my lungs, and like once I got arrested, I was 6 months pregnant, and so I just felt like life was over. And when I got when I got charged, I was looking at life without, and I think that being pregnant and getting charged with that it was just devastating. It was unreal. It was really unreal, and I think the hardest thing was knowing that I was never gonna be able to raise my son. I think that was a very hard moment, like a realization that hits, like I'm about to give birth to this baby, and I'm not going to be able to raise him. And so when I went into prison, actually, when I was still in county, like it, they dehumanize you so bad. I went through so much pain, and I remember not getting any sunlight. I remember not having any vitamins, any nutrition. I remember having cravings, and I could not give my baby, that satisfaction of eating good food. And all the stress that I was going through because I was fighting for my life at that moment. Um, it really did a number on me, you know, like it made me, it emptied me out. I became an empty seashell, you know, and was barely living. I was just on survival mode. And, you know, I remember begging for hot water so I can cook a noodle for my baby, for me and my baby, you know, like, and, I think for me, like, I can say that I went through some traumatizing stuff being pregnant, fighting life. And, I remember giving birth and I was handcuffed to the hospital bed. And I think the hard part was like, even the doctor was asking the CEO, hey, can you handcuff her? Like the baby was going through stress. I was going through stress and the CEO, refused to unhandcuff me. And I think it was in that moment where I was like, wow, like I'm not even gonna run. Like you can't run in the middle of labor. And I remember thinking like, I'm not even worth like unhandcuffing me from the bed to give birth. Like I'm not even worth that much. And so, you know, it did a number on me. I felt worthless. I lost all self-esteem, right? I felt like nothing. I was worthless. And so and you know, that's traumatizing. And I had already been traumatized before. And so I was it was a very dark time for me. Those years were very dark. And then finally after 3 years, the DA offered us a package deal, so we were able to, you know, I got 12 years. My co-defendants got 24. They both had priors. And so yeah, so then prison wasn't any much better. You know, you get a little more freedom in prison. But I was so broken down that I looked for ways to kind of cope. And I looked for ways to, I don't know if I was like on a suicide mission, but like I just didn't care about anything or anyone. And you know, when you're in prison, it's this it's this other world, right? Like you don't even think about the outside world because it does not exist. It can't exist because you're dealing with what you're going through in there. And for anybody that's been in a women's prison, like you go in there and it's just trauma after trauma after trauma. Like there's so much things that happen in a women's prison that you know, a lot of people don't talk about all the sexual assaults that the COs do. And then you know, the year of suicides that we had at CIW, just you know, the men that are walking in a women's prison. It's just such a traumatizing world. Like it feels like there's no escape, and there is no escape. You're stuck in that world. You can't run away. You can't like just say, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going away for a minute. No, you got to deal with it right then and there. And it's awful. Like I had to see a bunch of friends commit suicide, you know. And like I remember when the first suicide happened, the yard was down for like maybe like 2 hours. We were just, it was yard down for 2 hours. And then by like the third, fourth, fifth suicide, the yard was down for like 5 minutes, which meant like a human life was lost, and the yard went down for 5 minutes, you know? And so these little things, like, you don't even realize that they're traumatizing you at the moment because you're just on survival mode. and and it's not even until like now that I've been out that I think about these things and I reflect on these things, and it's just so painful to realize like how awful these institutions treat us. You know, they're very dehumanizing. There's no rehabilitation in there. It's what we're doing is we're hurting our women in there. And so I like to speak. I like to speak about these things to try to bring awareness and hope, and that these organizations out there, like they try and they bring they bring us real rehabilitation, especially like college and school. And that's what really, honestly, that's what helped me. And that's kind of what changed my life after 12 years incarcerated. Like it was education that kind of opened up my world and showed me that there's more to do in this life than just sit with the pain, you know? And I think about this and 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 I speak this because if there's anybody that listens to my story and they're going through something that's traumatizing, or they've experienced something that's painful, like there is hope for a better way. And I encourage our women, anybody really, but our women to educate yourself. And this is a great way to build your self-esteem. This is what I did to change my life around. I went from being in prison for 12 years, being handcuffed while I was giving birth, um, all the trauma that I've been through. And I'm happy to say that, like I have an AA degree in business, an AA degree in psychology. I'm about to graduate with a bachelor's degree in psychology, and on my way to applying to law school. And I work full time. I go to school full time, and I'm an owner of my photography business, and I can say this. I worked really hard on everything that I do now, and I feel like it speaks volumes, right? Because if I can go from being in the gutter to to being able to do everything I do now, it's possible for anybody to change their life. And the way I did it was through education. It gave me my self-esteem, and it gave me back my self-worth. And and not only that because of education, I am now able to give back into my community. So I advocate. I go into the prisons. I go into juvenile detention centers. I'm speaking at conferences. I'm telling my story on podcasts, and I do it with the hope that it would give inspiration to anybody out there that's having a hard time right now. Like, you can change your life. You can change your life, and you can make it so much better. And you can also help others by sharing your story and your victories, because there are people that listen. And so that is why I do what I do.
So what was the aftermath of giving birth?
Whew. So that was one of the most difficult things I've ever experienced in my life, and I've been through some traumatizing stuff, right? But so because the I was under so much stress, and then the baby was under so much stress, I had to have an emergency C-section. But because I had an emergency C-section, I was able to stay in the hospital for 3 days. So for 3 days, I was able to hold my baby, kiss my baby. I think I kissed my son a million times, just because I knew I was not going to see him for a very, very long time, if ever. Right at that point, I was looking at life without. And so I remember just kissing his little feet and kissing his little face, and looking at him and just realizing, like, I'm not going to be able to raise my baby. And so I tried to love him as much as I possibly could in those 3 days, right? And my dad came to pick him up. So my dad picked him up, and then I went right back into solitary confinement. And I think that's when my post traumatic stress disorder kind of like kicked up a notch. And then I was suffering from depression and anxiety. And it was really hard because I was pregnant, and then going back into solitary confinement, and it was just me, like, that's when it kind of hit me, like, yeah, like, I'm alone in the cell. And for solitary confinement, anybody who knows, anybody who's ever experienced that, it's a real mental breakdown. And so that was rough. I contemplated suicide so many times. Like I remember waking up and just being like, would it be easier for my son to know that mom is dead, or would it be easier for him to know if she's alive but in prison? And so like I played with the cons and the pros about that, and it was just really difficult, and having to having to like get visits of him through a glass wall. Like I once my mom and my dad started bringing them to visit, it was just so difficult. It was painful. Like I remember singing lullabies on the little phone through the glass, and trying to touch him, but like I'm just touching glass, you know. And I think those were the hardest years. The those were really hard years. So when I got to prison, like my mom would bring my both of my children, my daughter and my son, uh, you know, every now and then. It was just really hard for me to see them because I knew that I would have to say goodbye. So those visits were really hard. Like as a mother, like you just want to protect your children, and so I also wanted to protect them from coming into institutions and being subjected to searches and stuff like that, and being surrounded by, you know, correction officers and stuff like that. So although my visits were somewhat frequent, like sometimes I would tell my mom like, let's skip a visit, just because I was just trying to protect my children, and so it was just hard years as a mother. And I wasn't the only one that went through that kind of pain. There's an entire women's prison that had to deal with the same issues, and I think that's where the homegirls like really helped me out in there. Like, I come back crying from those visits, or like there I am thinking about suicide again, and it's the homegirls that surrounded me and showed me love. And I think I look back at those times, and I don't think I would have made it without those homegirls. And so, like, I want to take this time to thank my girls for giving me the courage to keep moving forward, And so I think watching my kids grow up after those, I was gone for 12 years, and so watching them grow up um, inside a prison, like, you don't have that bond that you would normally have, when you're raising them out in the free world. And so it was a little strained for a while. And I knew that the day that I got out of prison, my goal was to make sure I built that bond with my children. And so that was my main goal when I got out. I had a bunch of goals when I got out. And the first one was making sure I rebuild a bond with my children, reconnected with my family. And, it took many years. And there's days where we're still working on those connections, but I'm happy to say that, you know, my children are my life right now, and they're amazing individuals. My daughter is, she's in college, she works full time, she's just this beautiful soul, right? And my son, he must get some of his ambition from me because he's a very ambitious and smart young man who, I just went to South Carolina to go visit, to see him graduate from the military. So he just graduated from the army, and he's doing great. And these are great kids, and they're very resilient, and you know even though their system impacted, they've made the best out of a bad situation, and they saw all the trauma that I went through, and they saw all the pain that I went through, but they also saw how hard I worked to change my life. And I like to think that them seeing me rebuild my life gave them courage to create their goals and their ambition, and pursue their, pursue a life that's different from the life that I lived. And so, I'm happy to say that regardless of what they went through, uh, to know that their mom was in state penitentiary for all those years, they overcame overcame all the negativity, and they're out here and doing amazing, and I am one proud mother, and I'm just lucky to be the mother of these amazing kids.
So how was your battle with addiction?
I've had a pretty lengthy battle with addiction. It started when I was around 12 years old, and at first it's just fun and games, right? Like you're just partying, you're kicking it, you're getting high, it's no big thing, and then it turns into a life battle, and I've dealt with it most of my life, and even in prison, uh, I was high almost every single day. There was moments where I could barely walk back to my unit, and it's weird. Like I don't even know how I lived through some of those days. But I think it was more of a coping skill, right? Like I was just trying to fill this void, or I was trying to kill the pain, and I was trying to avoid life and avoid feelings, and so like I used addiction, and I held on to it, and I did not want to let go of using. It was a part of me. It became a part of me, and nobody can make you stop using. Uh, And I had family, I had kids, I had friends that did not want me to go down that route, but you can't make somebody stop unless they're willing to stop. And I remember this one time where it got really bad. My addiction got really bad, and my mom heard it in my voice that I was doing bad, and she when I called her from prison, she was like, I need to come visit you. And I remember being so ashamed, and I told her, I was like, Mom, I look really bad right now. Like, do not come visit me. I I look bad, and I did look bad, and I was bad, and she came anyway. She came to visit anyway, and I remember thinking, like, when you're in prison, you gotta do what you gotta do to survive, and that's something I had to do to survive. Like, I wanted to die, and so I used to kill that pain, to fill that void, and but I knew that the day that I got out was the day I was gonna stop using, and it was. I remember I got high the morning that I was gonna parole, and that was the last time that I used drugs.
So do you believe in God?
So I've had many conversations with God, and I, I had a long battle with God, with whether believing He was real, or just a figment of imagination, just simply because of everything that I've gone through. And I used to think, how could God do this to me? And so it was always like this battle. Like, does He exist? Like, if He existed, would He allow all these things to happen? Like all the things that happened to me as a child, and growing up, and so it's been a battle. But now, after a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness, and all the hope that I have in my heart. Like I do believe he exists, and I would say that I'm more of a spiritual person just because I it's almost like this feeling in my heart, right? Like I've been through a lot of stuff, and I don't even know how I got through a lot of it. I really don't. Like if you could like jump in my head and see everything that I've seen and go in my heart and 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 know everything that my heart's been through, and I survived a bunch of really traumatic stuff, and I don't think I would have been able to survive it without God, you know. And so I can say at now I'm not really a religious person, but I'm more of a spiritual person, and you know, I feel like I went through everything that I went through, not as punishment to me, you know, but more as this is my story, and I'm able to share it now and give hope to others, and I feel like I'm able to do that through him, you know, and he gave me enough courage and enough strength to share my story and share to the world what I've been through, you know, and I do it to give others hope, and I think if I can change things, I don't think I would. I don't think I would go back and change them. I think everything that I went through made me the person that I am today at this moment, and I'm pretty proud of the person that I am today. You know, and I'm not a bitter person. I'm not an angry person. What I am is a hopeful person and a grateful person, and and could not do that without the hope that there is a higher being, you know, and so I have a purpose, and I believe that my purpose is to give hope to my community and to all the other women that are going through things that they think that they're not going to be able to survive. Like I am here to give you hope, and I hope that that I do that well, and I hope that I'm able to give others inspiration. You know, like everybody has that strength in them. You just gotta find it. You gotta dig deep and find it. And I believe in everybody, and I feel like everybody's got a purpose. And my purpose today is to bring hope to others.
So, what is your life like now on the other side of prison?
You know, I'm happy to say that things are going good, and I worked really hard at it. You know, and so I have a great photography business, and you know, I'm going to school full time. I work full time, and I have a lot of goals, and you know, I'm really really proud of my photography business, and anybody that follows me out there, it's Lovely Hue Photography, and you know, I like to say that I bring all my experiences and all my past and all my pain and you know everything that I've been through. Uh, whether it be you know all the traumatic experiences, um, the lifestyle, the the drug addictions, the teenage pregnancies, the um, domestic violence that I've been through. I take all of those experiences and I put it into my art, you know. And then when you look at my photography, um, you could see it. You could see, you know, I keep it very real. I keep it very honest, and even solitary confinement. I bring all of that pain that I went through, and I just put it in my art, and I show the beauty of resilience and perseverance, and you know, there's a lot of hope in my photography, and and there's beauty in struggle. there's beauty in adversity. There's beauty in hardships, and and I think that is one of my main goals, that I put my heart and my soul into my art, and I hope that when people look at my photography, that they can see all the experiences that I bring, and I convert that pain and I convert it into hope.
So, what advice would you give to any people hearing this or watching this?
Um, I think the number one thing that I would share is there's gonna be roadblocks in everybody's life. There's gonna be things that we go through, some more than others. There's gonna be hardships. There's gonna be struggles. There's gonna be pain. That's life, right? But I think the one thing that I would advise is you keep moving forward. You keep putting one foot in front of the other, no matter how hard it is. You just keep moving forward, and you start building, I guess, like a resilience, a perseverance, and everybody has strength in them. You just gotta find it. You gotta find that what drives you. You gotta find that little bit of inspiration, and I believe every single person has it. Every person has the ability to overcome anything, and I share my story because it's not easy for me to share my story, right? Like, it's pretty painful, it's pretty traumatic. I'll probably cry after this interview just because it's so hard. But if I can get through everything that I've gone through, then you can get through whatever it is that you're going through. And it may seem impossible at the moment, but whatever you're going through, like, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna get through it. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You keep moving forward, and you're gonna get through it. And I hope that I inspire everybody out there that no matter how hard things look at the moment, there's a brighter day. There's a brighter future. Better days are coming. Like, you just gotta get through this little roadblock, and you can do it.